So every division has one of those guys. The physical definition of to almost every single prospect and hype train coming through the rankings, and they are well known as the gatekeepers. These are the guys that are used as the matchmaker's science experiments to either fraud check hype trains or to showcase that the prospect is actually legit. And these gatekeepers are typically, for one, experienced, two, can make a prospect's life hell one way or another, whether it be a one-hit KO power or suffocating wrestling, three, they're pretty durable, and four, they're either past their primes or they just aren't title worthy. So with that criteria being said, let's identify exactly who the gatekeeper is in every weight class. Now, in the flyweight division, pretty easy to state that it's Bruno Silva. You could argue Charles Johnson, but I feel like as gatekeepers, you really don't care if they win or lose too much. And I feel like for a lot of people in the MMA space, you kind of want to be seeing Charles Johnson winning because he is more entertaining. And Bruno, he does fit the bill more so because since beating Cody Durden to enter the rankings in mid-2024, he's just been the flyweight's bloody talent tester outside the rankings. Because aside from fighting Manel Kape, where he got pieced the fuck up in his next fight, he was then given 3 great prospects in a row to try and enter the top 15, with firstly Joshua Van, who pieced him up and is now the champion, then Hyun Sung Park, which granted he did win that fight, but then instead, after that win, giving him someone up the rankings, they try and match him up with Loney Kavanagh outside of the rankings, which luckily for him, that was cancelled because we know what Loney Kavanagh just did to Brandon Moreno, and now he's just controversially lost to Charles Johnson, and everyone's happy that Charles Johnson's won and doesn't really care about Bruno Silva. And now he's fighting outside the rankings again against Edgar Chairez coming up, who is another great prospect that has to be ranking tested, so give him Bruno Silva. That's the pattern. And it does make sense stylistically and with criteria why Bruno Silva is the flyweight gatekeeper, because he's tough, he's durable, he's got power in his hands, he's got a decent ground game, decent submission game, he's just that well-rounded test that isn't that fantastic or well-known to just showcase your skills against if you're outside the rankings. Now, in a bantamweight, not much of an argument here, guys. It's Marlon Vera, because since his loss to Sean O'Malley for the title, he's just been used as that momentum pusher for all of his opponents, and he had to face an undefeated Davison Figueiredo up at bantamweight to try and enter the top 5, and then after that, he was supposed to fight Mario Bautista, who was on a big win streak at the time. That obviously got cancelled, but then he goes and fights Ayman Zahabi, who is on a 6-fight win streak down the rankings, and then after that, is fed David Martinez while he is still in the top 10, and David Martinez is not even ranked and is also extremely dangerous. That just spells we want this prospect tested. Let's try get this other guy outside of the top 10 to put him in. I think Marlon Vera, ultimately, it just makes a lot of sense that he is the gatekeeper. He's got the power in his hands, and he's obviously got that granite chin, which if anyone cracks that and takes him out, they're getting boosted so far up the rankings and in terms of just being a hot prospect, because no one's been able to do it above him. It's honestly just not looking good for Marlon Vera, because he's got terrible fight IQ and does not have a ground game to save his life, but still has the defense on the ground overall and on the feet. There's a lot of wins for prospects coming up fighting Marlon Vera. It gives them the chance to either try and finish him, which is mission fucking impossible, or if they do beat him, even if it's by a decision, they beat a former title challenger. So it just makes a lot of sense. Now, in at featherweight, honestly, another obvious one. Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett has been the definition of a gatekeeper since he lost to Yair Rodriguez in his title eliminator at UFC 284. Because after that, he put his top 5 ranking position on the line against Ilia Topuria, loses that, then he fights down against Bryce Mitchell, destroys him, but then gets Lerone Murphy, who's 10th ranked, so he's fighting down twice, that's spelling gatekeeper. Then he goes and fights Yusuf Zalal, loses that instantly, and finally fights Kevin Vallejos, who just entered the rankings off of Josh Emmett being in the top 10, very similar to Marlon Vera with David Martinez. That's 5 hot prospects in a row for Josh Emmett. Emmett. And you know why the UFC is making him a gatekeeper. He's been seasoned in the rankings for like half a decade. He has that flatline KO power that up-and-comers have to show that they can work around. And he also has the durability. You know, he did lose to Kevin Vallejos pretty easily, but you look at what happened with Ilia Topuria. He's got a lot of heart. He's got cardio. He's got explosiveness. You either have to get around that KO power to piece him up or take him out, or you get absolutely destroyed Bryce Mitchell style. So it completely makes sense that he is the gatekeeper of featherweight. Now, in at lightweight, I've got Mateusz Gamrot as the official gatekeeper here, and I know a lot of people are going to be arguing, Callum, what the hell are you talking about? It is obviously Beneil the Goat Dariush, but there's a difference, fellas. There's a difference between being a gatekeeper and a fucking lamb for the slaughter that Beneil Dariush is. Mateusz Gamrot is definitely that gatekeeper by criteria. Like, he hasn't been solidified as like other guys on this list, but the UFC is molding him into that gatekeeper already, because since he went on that 3-fight win streak a couple years back where he beat Jalen Turner, Rafael Fiziev, and Rafael Dos Anjos, all good opponents that are ranked, he then goes and fights Dan Hooker, who is ranked outside of the top 10, which granted Dan Hooker did beat Jalen Turner, but there was over 5 ranking positions between the two of them, so it really was putting his top 5 ranking on the line, where Hooker was above the top 10, and then he goes and controversially loses that fight to then, while still being in the top 10, has to fight Ludovic Klein, who is not even ranked. And then granted, he wins that fight and gets a shot up the ranking against Charles Oliveira, which is literally the worst stylistic matchup they could have fucking given him. And now, after obviously losing that badly, he is now fighting another guy outside of the rankings in Esteban Ribovic, who, I mean, he's great, but is not ranked. And Mateusz Gamrot is still in the top 10. You are borderline top 5 ranked and are fighting 2 unranked guys almost back to back. You are a fucking gatekeeper of the lightweight division, mate. Understandably, why they are making it in the landscape of the lightweight division and why they are stating him as the gatekeeper, basically, Gamrot has that counter wrestling style to really expose up-and-coming entertaining guys, and also has the durability and endurance, and also does have some decent strike speed on him as well. So he's a pretty good test all around, and he's not a guy that like has that punishing thing where he's going to take years off your life, but he's a guy that's going to teach prospects that aren't beating him like Ludovic Klein to get better strike timing and especially better transitional capabilities on the ground and wrestling defense in general. So he is a great learning curve for prospects coming up. Now, in at welterweight, and it is hard to see, man, Gilbert Dorino Burns is the welterweight gatekeeper now, because since he lost to Kamaru Usman for the title in 2021, he's been through it. He started off with a fair top 5 fight with Wonderboy Thompson afterwards and won that fight while he was 2nd ranked and Wonderboy was 4th, but then gets fed Khamzat Chimaev, who was 11th ranked at the time, and then fights another 7 ranks down after losing that to give Neil Magny a top 5 opportunity, which made no fucking sense. And yes, he did win that fight, but then he goes and fights Jorge Masvidal outside of the top 10 again, which granted, there's the Miami tax on that card and why he did fight him. But aside from that, and aside from the deserved Bilal fight after that where he's fighting up, he gets fed JDM, who's outside the top 10, then Sean Brady, who only just entered the top 10 and was a surging prospect, just like JDM, just like Khamzat Chimaev. Then he gets given Michael Morales, who was outside the top 10 while he was in it. And now is fighting Mike Malott, who isn't even ranked either. Like, it's really rough to see, but the UFC know what they're doing. They are giving him all the prospects in the world because they know that he is a veteran of the division and is very well-rounded everywhere, but they know that he is past it. He's not going up the rankings again, and yes, he's been testing guys since he lost that title fight. He's got power in his hands, he's got decent wrestling, and he does have scary grappling to test all upcoming opponents, but he's a guy that definitely is past it and is solidified as a gatekeeper. Now, in at middleweight, this fighter has definitely picked upon their lack of popularity, which I actually do like Jared Cannonier, but it doesn't change the fact this guy is 100% the gatekeeper of the middleweight division. And it's getting scary because we could almost argue Israel Adesanya at this point as the gatekeeper, but we definitely have Jared Cannonier fitting the bill at this point, because after losing to Izzy in 2022 for the title, he's been used as the tester to enter the top 5 for Strickland, KO Baralho, and Nasruddin Imavov, and then for the top 10 for RoboCop and MVP, all up-and-coming prospects at those points. And yes, he did beat Sean Strickland, but then he had to fight down against KO Baralho instead of fighting up, and then he goes and beats RoboCop, and then has to fight MVP, who is also ranked down. So that's pretty clear to say that the UFC is saying, yeah, we don't care, this guy is just going to be testing prospects after this time. He had his title shot, he's done. But that doesn't change the fact that he is a tough son of a bitch to fight. He definitely is getting old, but he has the ability to push the pace so damn hard against the up-and-coming prospects, where yes, some of them get through, but some of them, aka RoboCop, fall damn hard, and that's because he's got the durability, he's got the heart, he's got good boxing on him too, and he is a guy that is just so strong and is hard to get down and keep down as well. So he is a great test for up-and-coming fighters, because if you can't dig deep against him, he is going to destroy you. He is a prospect killer in that sense, unless you can out-skill him on the feet, or you can just out-heart him, which is very difficult. But at this point, definitely a solidified gatekeeper for the middleweight division. Now, in at light heavyweight, we actually have our first former champion, but it makes a lot of sense when it's Jan Blachowicz at this point in his career, because after drawing that last title fight against Ankalaev, he was then chosen to introduce bloody Alex Pereira to the division while he was in the top 5 and Pereira wasn't ranked at light heavyweight, and then goes against Carlos Olberg and Bogdan Guskov outside the top 10 across the last 3 years to give the opportunity for all of them to enter the top 5 back to back to back. And yes, look, Jan is a certified veteran, and I think being that former champion actually works against him in just stating that he is a gatekeeper, because he is a lot older, but a lot of these guys coming up get juiced up so much more and pushed up so much more when they've got a former champion on their resume. And Jan isn't a guy that's just out of it. He's not washed. Like, he's a guy that's got good boxing, he's got good durability, he made all of those fights competitive, and he's got very good strike timing there. He's very hard to hold down. He's just a great test all around, especially for guys now at this point trying to break into the top 10, especially with that incentive of having a former champion on their records. It's hard to see Jan cut down time and time again, but he is the old torch and he's passing it on to the new ones, and at the moment, he is definitely that gatekeeper. Now, in at heavyweight, this one's a bit more layered. This one's actually probably the most difficult one, because you have someone that is a gatekeeper of the top 10, then you have a gatekeeper of the top 5 when it comes to heavyweight. The gatekeeper of the top 10 is Marcin Tybura, who has fought like 6 prospects back to back to back to back, and so on and so on. But the real test for the top 5 as the gatekeeper is Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes tests if you are elite, whereas Marcin Tybura just tests if you are good. Now, Curtis Blaydes, since he lost to Derek Lewis in 2021, where he got sent to the fucking Shadow Realm, he has been that elite gatekeeper to try and enter the top 5, because he went and tested Jairzinho Rozenstruik when he was coming up. He then tested Chris Daukaus when he was coming up, and then goes and tests Tom Aspinall the first time, so he's actually won all of those. And then he goes and beats Jailton Almeida as well, stops him from getting up there, and then beats Rizvan Kuniev, which the difference with this guy compared to all the others, Rizvan Kuniev was not even ranked. He hadn't even had a UFC fight, only a Dana White's Contender Series fight, and gets a top 5 shot against Curtis Blaydes. And now Curtis Blaydes is testing Josh Hokett, which again, I think he'll actually win. And aside from Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes is basically the most well-rounded of the single-digit rankings, and he's been perfect at testing the wrestling defense and cardio of his opponents, and also their ability to try and outbox him. He is just a very well-rounded, strong, big heavyweight with good cardio. He's just that guy that's going to give a very well-rounded test to anyone moving up. And that's why we're seeing all these hot up-and-coming prospects like Rizvan Kuniev and Josh Hokett getting a jab at Curtis Blaydes, but he is very hard to take out and very hard to get through. Now, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and please let me know down below if there's any gatekeepers that you would change from my list, and let me know who you think should be more solidified in each division, and in the women's division as well, if you do actually even care. But please do like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel, and if you haven't already, definitely check out the video here on the screen for more MMA-based content, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one. Laters.